What's up, y'all? You're about to see an absolute banger of a webinar all about how Doug is going to help you walk through how to use Claude and other AI tools, but really mostly Claude Cowork to help you be successful at camp and some ideas to get started. To be honest, the beginning of the webinar got cut off in recording. So what you missed at the beginning is three big things. One, AI gives me too much information and I need to shrink it down. I need to see just the highlights of what's going on. And AI is the best tool that I've seen out there at taking tons of information and giving me short snippets that I can really take on. Because if you're anything like me, you've got way too much inbound and not enough simplified information that's gonna come to you. And what AI can really do is transition from this idea of having a mechanic, right? Like your Claude, your ChatGPT, whatever, it can be a mechanic. And what we want to be doing is turning it into your mechanic, the mechanic that really knows your buses, the mechanic that really understands what you're trying to accomplish, right? So what you're trying to do is build a bunch of context. So you're taking AI from just a generic tool that's out there to a tool that really gets you and gives you just the information based on your specific situation. And the way that I'm doing that is three projects that I want to bang out on here that gives you some quick information so that Doug can then talk about how it all works. And he's kind of my guy that explains how things work. And then I try and make them work. One is I'm making markdown files for every staff member, activity area, building at camp. And then every time we're doing a survey, we're taking that information from the survey and getting it into each one of those markdown files. Markdown files is just a way for AI to look at each thing and be able to quickly scan through it. And we'll talk through to how to get that set up. Second, every day I get a Slack message that tells me three video ideas. If you're on any socials and you follow me, you'll see I'm posting every day right now, just a quick face to camera, 2 minute ish video. And AI is giving me bullet points as ideas based on things that I've written, stuff going on in the world, and what it knows about camp. Boom, here's three ideas that you could use as a video. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't, but it's really helpful to get me started every day. And then the second thing I did, or the third thing I did, is I went through and asked AI to ask my Claude to help me rethink visiting day, and it gave me a whole bunch of ideas on how to do that. And the most important part is it told me, here's some ideas on how to do it based on all of the survey responses that you've gotten about visiting day, what it's looked like in the past. Here's some changes, and here's what would be different based on the schedule that it's proposing. It's not a perfect schedule, but it's a great first draft for me to start the conversation with my team. You're gonna love this recording. If you need anything, send us an email. We'd love to help you out. Doug is the absolute man, and he helps me navigate this world of AI that is changing every single day. You're going to have an awesome summer. Thank you so much for getting kids to camp. This whole thing with AI is all about how can I use a tool to make it so that you can get outside, touch grass more, help kids more, spend more time getting up to stuff all summer long with people, because that's what I care about. AI is just a tool that helps us get there. Thanks so much. Have a great summer. And so every morning, my Claude gives me a new idea for a video. Actually, gives me three ideas for a video to make, and then I sort of iterate from there. What I'm finding is too much information is really hard. AI is so good at giving me information that I need to like slow it down and I constantly need to tell it, give me less information. And I'm getting there. My last of the three ideas that I want to just like lead with before I turn it over to Doug and say, Doug, do the technical stuff to explain to me how this shit actually is going to happen to help us get more kids to camp and touch more grass. Is I am having, I'm going to say some mildly technical things, but if you just type this into your Claude, it'll help you get there. I'm having my Claude Cowork build me markdown files, which is basically just the fastest way for it to look at stuff. Markdown files of all of the different parts of camp, every activity we do, every staff member we have, every building at camp. And I'm trying to help it learn constantly. And we'll show you my sort of daily scheduled things that are dumping into those files. What is true about those areas? So I start to notice if in our surveys, we're going to run surveys all summer long, right? If in our surveys, a lot of people are complaining about moldy towels. It'll, if I give it enough information, I can have the AI be smart enough to triangulate that the moldy towels are coming from Pine Lodge. Because what AI is giving for me, this is the big takeaway for me, is when I dump a lot of information into it, it sucks the information out in a way that as if I was having Mario pour over everything that I do all the time. That's the power that I want to steal from AI. I don't love AI for generating emails. I don't love AI for generating um, sort of like exactly what I'm going to do. I like it for taking a lot of information specific to me, like it's like my mechanic, not just a mechanic, my specific mechanic that's been working on my buses for a long time and giving me real context and a very small number of things that are helpful for me. That's what I'm trying to do. That's also Marshall's pitch at Campfront. Don't kid yourself. That's what Campfront's trying to say that they do too. I've seen their demo. It looks pretty cool. I'm a Campfinder guy myself. I got to just stay loyal here. But that's what I know they're trying to do, and it looks like what I believe AI is going to be able to do for camps is basically take lots of information and give us the actionable stuff that really helps us. And it turns out that that's kind of the same thing that building content about your camp is like. What's the difference between camps Kenwood and Evergreen and Wingate and Kirkland on the Cape? Like if you're like far enough apart, Sandy, we look the same, right? We just like look like great camps that are doing great stuff. But when you zoom in a little bit, you start to see that there actually is difference. And so Doug has spent a long time building content for camps. He helps camps figure out like how to take things and make them special for their camps. And the same skills that it's been to write newsletters and to support people in content creation is sort of become the same skills that help you generate information from AI and make it actionable and useful. So Doug, how are you going to help us all touch more grass this summer?
I'm going to help by starting by making sure that this is recording, and you're going to let people in that are waiting in the background, and we're going to make sure it's recording. And second, we're just going to roll through. I will share my screen here in a second, have some slides. We'll roll through sort of like, I will say one thing, the caveat about this is that and I can just tell from the forms that came back from everyone that came in, there's a wide range of use cases here. Like there are people stemming from haven't thought about it at all and just starting to think about it, to people that are putting themselves into the regularly use it category. And I would say even like an active user category, even that group probably has a very wide range of, hey, I use it every day because I'm kind of asking it questions like I would ask Google. And then all the way up to a group of people that are worried about if they're going to run out of tokens every day, are thinking about, hey, should I be using Opus or Sonnet? Hey, is my $100 a month plan going to be enough, or do I have to move it up to $200 a month? Like there's another, and then there's another group beyond that that's connected to Claude Code and is running multiple different agents. So even sometimes when people say, hey, I'm using it regularly, even that sometimes is a little hard to tell what that answer really means. So I want to caveat this a little bit by saying, I'm sure that the range of people in here now and people that are going to be watching on the replay, it's the range is wide, but the core, like sort of starting points and the core builds actually, and the core thing, the way you should be thinking about it, actually that doesn't deviate too much. And you can get yourself in a little trouble, not real trouble. You can get yourself kind of going in the wrong direction if it's built or not built properly to begin with. But if it's built properly to begin with, then it really, really starts scaling and gets into the areas, like Jack said, that will start to really, really unlock stuff. So with that in mind, I'll share my screen here. We'll look at a few different slides, and we'll go through a couple examples of what it is we're doing, and then one thing that I built specifically for this webinar. Okay, so whole goal here is get more time outside. This is something that Jack and I've really spent a lot of time talking about, and probably some people have heard us say, is that camp is this weird amalgamation of 40 weeks of an online business and then 12 weeks of actually being outside running around. And you probably, a lot of times, if you got into this gig, didn't think about the 40 weeks as much, but really, really wanted the 12 weeks to be the 52 weeks, but then you realize 40 of those weeks was just a lot of desk time and computer time and online business time. and all this other stuff that, hey, maybe that's your bag, but my guess is that's probably not where it started. The great news is with some of these tools, it can take those 40 weeks and it's not going to cure every problem in there, but it's going to significantly lighten the load, especially around the things that frankly you probably hate doing. Like all of us have things that we hate doing. My guess, a lot of that is like sort of the repetitive BS tasks that you sort of find yourself doing or responding to or trying to make or starting from scratch every time. Claude, in our case, Claude, helps us kind of skip all those things, get to the finish line on a lot of them, and even at sometimes start having them be done on an automated basis so that you are no longer, you just kind of know what's being done in the background for you with the context that you give it, which is very important, which we're going to talk about next. If you give it the right context, you give it the right instruction, if you make the right skills, and you set the tasks up in a way that are manageable, a lot of that 40 weeks of online business doesn't melt away all the way, doesn't melt all the way away, but it will start to feel much more manageable, but it does take work up front. So how do we build stuff? My guess is a lot of people, when they start using Claude or ChatGPT or wherever, start with a prompt that has some kind of goal with it, and you're wanting very much to get an outcome out of that prompt. And then somewhere along the way, you become very frustrated that the prompt isn't just reading your mind about what it is exactly you want. And then you wonder if like AI is broken completely because it's like, dude, that's just not what I want. I told you to make a camp schedule. It kind of started, you seemed like you had it all under control. You told me you agree with me, obviously, because LLMs are nothing but a very, very agreeable. We'll agree with whatever you say. Like you could say anything and we'll just agree with you. So it agrees with you. It gets as excited as you are. And then you start to build the schedule. And now you're on hour 6 of it. And you're like, what on earth is happening? You really lost the plot. The context window is too long. It's probably not too long. That's 6 hours. But like the context window is too long. And now you just feel like you've been spinning your tires. Often it's because you started at a place of like trying to get to the outcome right away. And it's missing all the context that's actually needed to begin the work of what Claude can really do. So when we think about structure and setup, you have to start with context. You have to feed Claude as much information as you can about whatever it is that you're doing. Some of you probably have already done this, right? You've already uploaded files with who your camp is, all your website copy. Maybe you've thrown all your newsletters in there. Maybe you put in staff roles. You put in, I mean, all the other things. You put in maintenance stuff. You put in the operating handbook. All the different things that can go in there. My guess is, I see some owners and directors on here. My guess is some of you have already done that. My guess is some of you haven't. If you have not done that, this is the place to start. You have to start through project files, begin uploading the things that are going to give Claude the context to do that. One great thing about Cowork, as opposed to just Claude, just the regular, like the desktop version, the actual app, the Claude app that you have to put on your computer, is that it can begin reading files that are actually on your computer, right? Like the Claude app, the Chrome version of it is just going to be able to store whatever it can sort of save in a project. The Cowork will begin to use folders on your desktop that you give it access to. Markdown's the best way to do it, and it can constantly be looking for that as the context, which will, one, keep it much more organized, two, have it provide much better answers, and three, make sure it's just like a much more stable environment for when you want to start iterating. So you want to start with the context, then you get to the instructions of what you actually want it to do. It's like, hey, I want to build a schedule. Hey, I'm looking at the bus. I'm looking at the bus thing here. Hey, I'm starting to try to build a staff training. I want to start giving it instructions about like what it is I'm trying to accomplish. Now, Claude, start asking me questions about what you don't understand. This is a huge thing that I see many people miss. This part of it is just assuming when all the context and instructions are there that Claude's just like, because Claude will tell you it's got it. If you just say you're ready to go, and they'll say usually just say, yeah, like some version of hell yeah, let's go, right? And it'll start building something. When you start having it ask you questions about what it is you're trying to accomplish, you will then ensure, as the best of your ability, that it actually understands what you're trying to accomplish, and probably in there find a bunch of things that you missed, right? I do this all the time when I'm thinking about new marketing material, or if I'm doing, if Jack and I have had a long conversation about something, I'll just say, hey, what are your takeaways from this? What are the ideas that you have from this conversation? What do you think we missed when we were talking about this? The questions that you get there are like sort of invaluable. This step is almost always skipped by people because you just assume it's a tool that's there at your disposal and not really a thought partner. But with given the context and instructions, it becomes a thought partner for you. And then later you can start building skills, and the skills are what are going to be the repeated tasks that Claude can run in the background, kind of while you're not there, while you're sleeping, literally or figuratively, and doing, because these are the things that you're kind of always thinking about. I can give some examples of skills later, but the skills part is once you have these other parts built, the skills are what allow things to start happening in the background for you, sort of on repeat every night. Like Jack's skill of every night, I need this brief. That's a skill that's developed from a context that he's given it, and it's there on a timer, and it's going to show up every single day, and it's going to look. I need a skill that's going to read Slack every day to know what the problems are. It's got a skill to read my Gmail to make sure it knows like what I have coming up. A skill of, hey, I need you to look back at all of the client calls that I've had over the last week and tell me about what it is I need to make sure I'm accomplishing this week. These are the skills that run in the background that can be built on top of these other pieces. So make sure you have context files, make sure you have clear instructions, make sure you have questions. Then you're going to get the outputs, the good stuff. And then once you see the things that you're sort of doing on repeat, that's when you start making the skills. And I know that some of you are probably coming here. It's like, yo, I thought, build something for camp. Show me. And I was like, I would love to do that on a call like this. It's just really, it's important to look and see this is actually where every big thing starts, is with these five, well, not the output because you're going to get that, but these other four steps. These are the things that really need to happen. Jack, you want to add anything to this before we go into some of these actual, we'll go into some examples.
Okay, we're going to go into examples in a second. Mario just messaged me to say it's pretty easy to move from ChatGPT to Claude. And something to think about is like, I spent a lot of hours talking to ChatGPT. It learned a bunch about me. And then when I wanted to move to Claude, I was like, is it just going to forget everything about me? Claude, Anthropic, that makes Claude, they made it pretty easy to bring most of that knowledge over. And then why I like Claude over ChatGPT, and I don't care. I don't have a take. ChatGPT might be better tomorrow. Who knows? Right now, why I like it is it's easier to build the context, like Doug is talking about. It's easier for it to become the intern that knows my camp by building all of these markdown files so that it can go look at those in the context that you're talking about. It's easier in Claude than it is in ChatGPT. Right now, that might be different tomorrow, and I'm not, you'll switch back. I imagine we'll be switching back and forth between these kind of things for a few years, all of us, as we figure out which ones are the ones that work for us. Just like you move from an iPhone to whatever the green ones are that some people use. I can't even remember. It's just annoying in my text. But
these tools will all get to the same place in the end. Like there'll be convergence around
exactly.
what they're all going to end up doing. I don't think there's any question about that. It's just a matter of Cowork and Claude can do it now, and that's why we chose it. I just know it can do it now. The user face is very, very easy to use. All things considered, I mean, as easy as something like this can be to use. Like I think that Claude is already there in terms of point click and just be able to find things pretty easily. Claude is set up in a way that, at least from the way I think about things, it's pretty intuitive around this. So go ahead, Jack, and then we can move on.
And what we're talking about in terms of projects here, what we're talking about really, I mean, if we're zooming all the way in, what we're talking about is how does Cowork help us get more done, and not how do you build a little app that does something for you like a programming app. That's possible, and Cowork can help you get there. It'll end up being Claude Code, or you can do it in Schlensky. I think Andy Schlensky's on this call. He's built something in Base 44 that'll do a bunch of this stuff for you. Base 44 is just another user interface that lets you access these models and build stuff. So I try not to get too technical on these kind of things because mostly I don't need to right now, and that's why I have Doug in my life, is that he sort of takes care of most of the technicality stuff. But what I'm focusing on is how do I get more time off my computer, and how do I let cowork be basically my coworker, because it can click and it can type. And I think that there's a world where not very long from now, it's doing almost everything that I would normally do on a computer for me. Right now, I write my own emails and do some other things. But other than that, I go to Cowork first to start having a conversation and reminding it to save all this stuff so that it builds the context. Because uh, the the big value is that it's going to know more about my camp than anybody very soon, and it's starting to eliminate some of the key person risk that we all have in when one facility person leaves that's been at camp for a long time, and we don't even remember where anything is because he was the only one that knew it, or the program director that made the schedule for 20 years, and then when he leaves, uh who's going to do it and how do we start over. That is what maybe that's just because I'm new at my camp, so I'm like missing all of this institutional knowledge and I'm like scared about losing it. But that's the big value for me, is that it's building this repertoire that I can talk to every day. I can talk to it.
Yeah, I mean, Claude at this point, especially with Cowork, is like a master's level, pushing up PhD level, like sort of worker that will always agree with you and never gets tired, and will just be able to do a lot of be able to do a lot of the things that you probably wanted to do if given it enough time and context is just the other way to think about it. So let's go through a couple other examples. So this is Jack's daily brief. We didn't say this at the top, right? Did we do this daily brief at the top, or did you not say this one? All right, roll through this daily brief real quick about what you have Cowork giving you, and then I'll give this other live example.
Yeah, so every morning Cowork gives me it runs through my Slack and my Gmail and tells me stuff that I'm missing or decisions that I need to make that day. I don't know about you, but this time of year I'm like full of way too many emails and way too much inbound, and I need to prioritize. I need less information, not more information. I'm overwhelmed by all this stuff coming in, and I'm like, okay, what are the really important things? It's like I love The West Wing. It's like the piece of paper that gets handed to Bartlett to help him make a decision. I feel like I'm the president of the United States. Thanks, Claude. It's my Leo. And it also gives me 3 ideas to make those videos that we talked about. And then the other stuff below that is how it gets to set those things up. You can set up a million scheduled tasks. I have some weekly ones and some monthly ones, but that's enough for me to like not be too overwhelmed, but get the reminder, hey, a week ago you said you were going to figure out the visa for Anna. Have you actually done it? Because it might not know that I texted in WhatsApp or whatever. Some of the stuff doesn't link up that well, and then I can get it sorted. But it helps me drop fewer balls, and that is really important to me because I'm afraid I'm going to drop balls constantly. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm doing too many tasks every day, and doing what I think we all do as camp directors is do a lot of context switching. You're not staying in one lane. We're doing like 50 things, and this helps me catch up quickly as I go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting.
And by the way, if you're looking for ways to get started, this is another good one because this is basically even with medium context, but good connections to some of the places where you do your most work. Like a lot of this is just information pulling across a couple different sources, leveled down to make sure that it's like put out in a way that Jack can like read every day. So I don't even know every single connection, but I do know that Jack pulls in from Slack, so it's getting a Slack briefing every single day. It's going into Gmail and looking at his emails. It's going into Granola, which is just his video, or excuse me, his call recording app, right? That's what Granola does. I always call that Acorn every time I mention it to somebody else. I get Granola wrong every time. It's going and looking at his calls, and it's just feeding through those different input sources and organizing them and making best judgments about what it knows that he needs every single day. This kind of like daily briefing is actually a good place to start for camps because one, it's going to be a forcing function on a couple of things that you probably are going to want to do with Claude anyway, which is connected to outside sources like Slack, Gmail. If you're recording your calls, I use Fathom, Jack uses Granola. The places that information is coming in, just getting it set up on Cowork where you have those connected and making sure the connections are live and it's pulling in the right information. You can say, store the information here, into the different files on your computer. So like every single time you get a call, or sorry, every time you read something that's important for me on Gmail, we're going to store it in local files so that we can reference them later, because you don't want it going back and searching Gmail every single time, because that would just be, you're going to use up a lot of tokens and sort of just time and sort of computer space, or computer energy that way. So begin storing this information and start the loop. But even just getting these connections first into a good scheduled task, that is actually a very, very good place for everyone to start. If you were, because this is just this is the daily office work that just happens. I could probably say that confidently for everyone sitting in this call, is that you are doing some version of these things every single day. And you would like it to just begin looking at those things in the background for you and collecting the information as it goes. So the daily brief, and I'll put a prompt together that will go out after this. That will just be, when we send the replay, it'll just be how to set up a daily brief prompt for yourself. So if I can show you later after the call, but it would be, we can just walk through on a prompt that I'll send when we're all done. So that's the daily brief. Let me go through something that we built for this webinar specifically. That is, we thought the best way to show something that was possible without having to go and actually show things that were happening at K&E. Like, we don't want to show the parent surveys at K&E or the K&E Slack or all this other stuff, because there's just other people involved with that. For this webinar, we know it's just Jack and I and everyone here. But I want, Jack, you want to just mute everyone's thing in the background there. But the structure of this is the same structure that you could use for any other feedback mechanism that you're getting for your camp: surveys, staff forms, after action phone calls, things like this. This setup is built the exact same way as that. And basically it's set up like this. There was a Google form that was set up for responses that everyone put in, questions you had about this, what your role was, how much you used Claude or other AI, and then a question or concern you had. That went into a Google form. Cowork was set up to make a connection to go and look at that Google form, to put it into Claude Cowork and look through all of my context files personally. Like, I have large context files on the work that I do, whether it's writing and marketing, whether it's sort of like AI installations, just the different work that I'm doing. It kind of knows what I'm thinking, at least actually at this point on a pretty low level, but on a high level too. It's putting it through those skills and context files. I set it up as a scheduled task to run every hour, because I knew people were still signing up for this webinar right up to the time that we started. And I didn't want to have to go back and look at the forms every single time. And I wanted to have like reasonable answers to everyone's questions. And I want to be able to look for themes that were things people were asking without having to read through every form. And I wanted to go into a Notion database that I can which is just a web page, basically, which I don't know if you don't use Notion. Notion is essentially Google Drive or an Airtable analog that just stores files and has databases, and it has relational databases as long with just like basic sort of like word processing skills. But I want it to be put into a Notion database that I can look at. So all of it's happening through basically one prompt in Cowork, which was, I would like to set up this system. Go look at the forms, push everyone's questions and experience through what you know about me and Jack too, because I have a lot of context on Jack too. Make it a scheduled task so it's running every hour, and hopefully we'll have everyone in there by the time the webinar starts, and then put it in a place that I can find it. So let's go and look. Oops, that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to go here. So it looks like this. This is Cowork. Cowork is just a desktop app that is actually via the Claude desktop app that functions much in the same way Claude does through Chrome, but just has a few other pieces of functionality. You can see some of this is the same that you would see in regular Claude, but with some key differences here. And this is my personal one, so you can see, like, I was doing taxes yesterday, so I have all my financials are in here, and it's running financial reports for me. I don't think any of this is too it's not too private, right? Just making sure real fast. No one's names in here, but I have scheduled tasks that are just sort of running all the time in the background, and one of them is the webinar form sync, which is right here. So you can see this webinar form sync has been running basically since yesterday or this morning. I can't remember when I started. It started running today at 7:04 or 7:44. It's been running every hour, and every hour it's been pulling in different information from this form. And you can see each time that it runs this, it's giving me the output of where the new entry is. Hey, there's someone that came in here that had a question. There was an owner director. This is the first setup. And if you, I'll scroll up to the ones that came on recently here. So you can see here, it's continuing to pull in this information. It's logging all the different questions. I can then ask it questions later, which I'll show you in a second, but it's putting it all here in Notion, which is, hey, here's the role of everyone that signed up for the webinar. Here's the key question they had. And here is the campwork, campwork.ai, which is the website that we've stood up to do some of this work. These are some of the answers that it's given. I'm not going to go through all of these, but each of these answers, I did flag a few of them just to make sure, frankly, that it was giving right answers, are very close to the answers that we would give if asked these exact questions. Again, short of going through every single answer, and we'll stay after and do a Q&A for sure. This same exact thing can happen through camp if you just put your camp in the same context. I have someone, a parent, kid, staff, whatever. I know what their sort of their avatar or their role is. These are the questions or concerns they have. You know things about me that you can probably start answering. And now we can start really building it out. Do I need to flag it? And I can set up something, hey, flag this one because this one really needs to be addressed. Let's look for themes later. If I look back in Cowork, I can say, I thought I ran this before. Sorry. All right, well, I'll just say this. Hey, I want to know what some key themes of this webinar are, and what should I definitely, put in all caps, address. And it's going to start looking through.
Well, I was thinking, Doug, you can just click under recent, process webinar questions into Notion. You already have it on the left, underpinned.
Oh yeah, sorry. There you go. It was running in the background. I knew I ran that. I was looking for the in the old iteration of where I ran it. Was this it? No. Now, see, this is where we start screwing it up, buddy.
All right, shouldn't help. I shouldn't try and help. This is my fault. This is why you help me, not the other way around. That makes sense.
There we go. All right, here we go. This gave you the output we wanted. So scheduling is the runaway #1 pain point, right? Again, not going to go through all these. You can read these in the when you go through the replay, and I'll just print these out as a markdown file too. Basically, what I want to show here is when I've given all the context and having a good process around it, then all the questions that I want to ask later can just be sort of given to me on a silver platter. Not going to go through all these at the same time, but I hope this begins to show you that by connecting a few different places, connecting Google, connecting Notion, putting it as a scheduled task, having context, knowing sort of what I wanted it to do at the end. I want to know what everyone's questions are, and I want to know what the big themes are so that we can try to address them. Like I said, scheduling is just like, this is the beginning of how to address scheduling. I think we covered, I don't know where to start. Like this is where, try to tell you before, like this is where to start if you haven't started anywhere. Authenticity and human touch is a big fear. Jack and I have humans in the loop on every single thing. Like nothing ever gets just printed out to somebody without a human looking at it, right? I mean, Jack, you can say that pretty confidently too, right? Like that there's nothing, we don't have any automated tasks that are just like, hey, write this email and ship it to a parent. I trust you. Nothing even close to that happens. We're using it mostly as like an information and like personal delivery layer, but not like a public facing delivery layer. People want an example from our camps, not a product pitch. I hear that one. Camps are just sort of like individual entities at this point. Like there are some out of the box solutions for some of these things, for sure. Also, everyone just has their own teams and their own constraints and their own sort of like sort of comfort levels with these things. But we can cover some more of this. But anyway, moving on back to the slides, I'm hoping that these shows you a build that, again, is really not too terribly difficult if you were to just start connecting the different places that you have information stored and giving Claude reasonable ideas around, hey, this is what I want to end up doing. Go back to this. And Jack, you want to talk? Did you talk to the website audit yet? I get a little confused. We went off through our slides.
So one of the again, I want to just come back to like really practically, what can Cowork do for you? I sat down with a potential sort of supporter of camp, and she was like, hey, I looked through your website and it's great, and I saw some typos, and I was like, oh damn, not the way I wanted to start this meeting. And so afterward, embarrassed, I told my coworker to go through our website and just find every typo it could find. And without being told, it went through, found the typos, and then the suggested change that it would make. I copy and pasted those, deleted the ones that were actually just it was wrong about, and I said, "Hey, can you update this? Can you update the website for me?" I'd never asked it to update our website. We run our website on WordPress, and it spun its wheels for a while. Probably used up too many tokens. I probably should have said, "Ask me how. Ask me how to do this." Like I had it talk back to me, and it eventually said, "This is the breakdown I had." And what I did then is it said you can do one of three things. I can't remember what two of them are. One of them was go into your browser and just log into your WordPress. Logged into my WordPress and I said update the website, and it went through and it changed all of the mistake the typos, and then I said check again to make sure you didn't mess up. It didn't, and then I logged out of the website and it no longer has access to change our website. But I had access for whatever it was, 70 minutes to do that. And again, like I'm trying to show the actual practical things, not just oh yes, Sandy, good question. So
I will answer that. Yeah.
okay, so Doug, you'll get that. Thanks. But so this is one of the practical things that it did for me, and it could do for any camp. Just say, hey, find all the typos in your website. It'll go through every page like a great intern would and find those things, and then you can ask it to update it. It's better at updating things like WordPress than it is updating things like Squarespace, but it can click on any of these things. Any of these website tools, it can click on if you let it control your browser, which is one of the key features to Cowork that is different from the other things. I think ChatGPT's Codex does that as well. Doug, what's a token?
A token is just like the currency that Claude uses and spends to like have the compute that it handles from individual things. So it's basically like you have a certain amount of tokens that you can use, and certain processes or actions in Claude take a certain amount of tokens, and different levels of subscriptions just have certain tokens. So if you are making tons of API calls and doing like really heavy intensive Claude stuff, it will use a lot of tokens. If you are just asking it to give you the best filet mignon recipe, it's not going to use many tokens, right? Like that's a pretty easy thing. Once you start using like an MCP, which is like the connecting it to Google Chrome and having it search around, do stuff for you, you're going to start using up more tokens. If you're going to be using it to transfer data between your camp filing system, it's probably going to use some more tokens. So I will say this is like didactic. If you're asking about it, you probably are unlikely to be running up against it right now, is my guess. But it's sometimes a sign that like you're just doing more compute, like heavier, intensive stuff. It's pretty hard to run all the way up against token limits unless you're using like a lot of Claude code or you're just doing so many scheduled tasks on Cowork. But it's worth knowing about. Jack and I both run into it multiple times where we used up our tokens for a session and had to kind of sit on the sidelines in the penalty box for a little while. I'll go through this how do they compare in terms of tokens? You just pay more for more tokens, and that's kind of it. And like I said, if you're asking, I wouldn't really worry too much. I use the tokens example it was more of an example to show the range of how people view their own user status of Claude. Like if you are using it tons, then you like really, really a lot, then you definitely know what tokens are. If you think you're using it a lot, but you don't really know what these are, it's like a good litmus test for like sort of understanding where you exist on the spectrum of like daily users. Because you might be using it daily, but there's people that are using Claude daily in a much different way than other people are. Let me okay, I think we can run through some more specific questions. I will say, if you want to just like talk about, sorry, if you were to start, you should just try this. I'll send this as a backup. I'll send this in text in the replay. If you just want to start, once you've gotten through the context and once you've gotten through sort of giving Claude the information, and you just need another place to start, just go here and just say, I want you to help me build a system for a task that I do every single week. I'm going to explain it to you like I would a new hire, right down to like sort of like where I click around, what I do. steps, the constraints, the rules, things that I only know how I do it. Camps, I know camps are always like this. Like camps always have like a person who's been tasked with doing this like one specific thing forever. Sometimes they just kind of like got it dumped in their lap, and then 5 years later they realize they're the one that's tasked with this job. I know camps are just filled with different things like this. Start with these individual tasks. Don't build anything. Just ask me questions till you understand it, and then we're going to just figure it out together. These are good starting places for projects like this. And like I said, I use this, I would call myself like a medium high end user of this. I still go through, because I'm just not putting myself into like the buried in Claude code every single day person. I'm not that, but maybe whatever, like a step below that is. But I still use this exact same process with anything new that I want to build, or anything that new that I'm trying to accomplish. Is some version of this, is like ask me questions until we can figure it out. I'm going to go through as many questions as I can, and maybe even like unmute some people if you really have some longer questions. I do want to put this, if you are interested in like just having what it looks like for your camp and you want to just book 30 minutes with it, like this is my calendar, just book. It's free. We can just talk for 30 minutes for free. You can unload on whatever it is you're trying to work on. Can give you some like probably reasonable starting points on this. This will be in the replay as well, but that QR code literally just goes to my calendar. So if you want to just see what it looks like, book it. We can talk. I love to do this. And like Jack said at the beginning, the tenets of building out great like marketing content usually means like getting into the head of the people that care the most about their thing, which in this case care the most about camp. The same exact strategies that Jack and I use all the time on this, which is like a lot of talking, a lot of talking and a lot of batting of ideas back and forth, and then seeing what comes out in the wash. It actually is one-to-one the kind of stuff that speed runs all this stuff too. So that's 30 minutes to go on my calendar, and I'll leave it up there. But we can also go through some of these questions.
Just really quick to sort of wrap around what I'm seeing is, Andy, thanks for jumping in on the Camp Minder part, and Marshall for saying what's true for Campfront. We are just like, everyone is constantly reading the book about AI right now, because it's being written really fast as we talk about it. There's new stuff happening every single day. And what I'm trying to understand for camp constantly is, how can it help me just a little bit? How can the effort I put in give me more time on the other side? And the big takeaways for me are exactly what Doug is saying. One, a shameless plug for Doug. It's really helpful to have someone who just thinks about this stuff more than I do, that I get to talk to every week. And he just like makes shit better for me all the time, because he wakes up every day and he worries about this and I don't. I ran here after, making a video by the rock wall and talking to a mom who was upset about whatever, like I'm doing all the same things you are. And so I don't have time to keep up with all this stuff, even though I think it's really cool and really interesting. The second big takeaway for me is start finding a way to give AI context that you're willing to let it look at. That gives me an ability to talk to my stuff and get more information. And I don't know always what's going to come from it, but it's a number of times I've been uncertain about something, and I've been able to ask Claude, and it just like gives me more concrete answers, more thoughtful answers than just like talking to a mechanic. I'm talking to my mechanic, right? That is the big takeaway for me.
Can I make one jump in on one thing about that before you say your third thing? And I know there's going to be a question probably about like, hey, is it safe? Is the data safe here? If it's in Google, if you feel comfortable putting it in Google Drive for yourself, which a lot of people do, like you can feel comfortable with it here if you're on a paid plan. I would just say that. Like,
yeah. So don't put anything into it that you wouldn't put into Google Drive, because by the way, Google is doing the same thing. Gemini is reading all of your stuff the same way. If it's any of it's inside of a version of Google Drive.
It's safe from the outside. Like, I guess most of the point is it's safe from the outside. So like if you think there's like bad actors that are trying to access, you're worried about your data in that way. Like there's the same security layers that this is what I've been told is to Google Drive. So if you feel comfortable with it there, you can feel comfortable with it here. If you don't feel comfortable with it, like, knowing everything about you, that's a separate discussion. I'm saying strictly from the safety level of, hey, I don't want someone else accessing this information because they're going to misuse it in some way.
And yeah, Doug said this at the beginning, but agree with Marshall. Turn off data sharing and any form of like, can Claude learn from this? in your settings. If you can't figure out how to do that, just Google it or ask it to tell you how to do it, and it will. Um, and so, yeah, that's the last thing is please share the stuff that you're doing. That's awesome. Send me an email. Post it in the whatever the Facebook group is that camp directors use now that I can't remember because it's got a new name. Um, but like share this stuff so we're all learning together. Like we didn't touch at all like building some form of a programming app that I know Andy, who's on this call, has like built one for his camp that like seems like it mostly works inside of he used base 44 to build it. So these things are possible. More and more and more and more and more and more stuff is possible. And I believe we're going to be able to do more things ourselves inside of our camp organizations and less things that need to be done by other organizations, by other vendors. And Marshall, I appreciate you being here. And, I love Campminder. I love, but like we may not need as much SAP in the future. We might. I don't know what the world's going to look like, but we're going to be able to do more stuff internally, which is probably going to mean that we're going to all be able to do more stuff. And that's going to mean that there's going to be need for vendors and need for other stuff and whatever. So that's my belief. Yeah, Melissa, love that. Starting to build these systems. Um, anything you think a great intern can do with the internet, and that's really smart. These that's on the computer. These things are going to start to be able to do, and that's what I'm excited about. So I spend a couple hours every week just like messing around with stuff, and sometimes I get really useful stuff out of it, and sometimes I like am annoyed that I didn't call 3 parents in that time. That's I got to admit where I'm making my trade-offs.
I have questions that were asked in the forum. I'm happy to run through some of these, just sort of like speed run some of these questions. If other people have questions for us, like we can, we're still, I want to consider us like ahead of the curve and still learning, like I think well ahead of the curve in some areas and then still very much like I read something like Jack said, I read something every single day that I'm like, oh man, I got to learn about that. And it can feel overwhelming because
Doug,
there are just new things every single day.
will you just stop sharing your screen
Oh yeah.
so everybody gets bigger?
Everyone gets bigger.
You just click stop sharing your screen.
Oh yeah, I
For how good Doug is at helping with AI stuff, he really is bad at Zoom. He lives in Google Meet also, if that helps you think about who he is.
It's
All right,
actually
Doug.
wild how bad at Zoom I am, and it's like actually it's a huge knock on me because I know I've cost myself some stuff here by not being able to click around Zoom correctly through some lots of people sort of like populated into an area where it's just everyone watches me silently not being able to stop share or get the screen to present or whatever it is. What were you gonna say? I can answer some of these questions too.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's answer some questions. If there's other questions, keep putting them in the chat, or you can come off mute and just talk, and we'll make it work. And the official presentation's over. We'll send the whole recording to everyone, and we'll stick around for another 20 minutes or so and just keep answering questions and batting around ideas.
One that came in here was asking about how how you can stop AI from sounding sort of like automated and how to make it sound more human. I mean, the best way is just to be human and write your own things. Like I hate to say it this way, but like you can get different prompts to get you closer onto how you write. It's only going to really work if you've actually kind of written a lot and thought a lot and talked a lot about your thing. And if you've done that, go ahead.
But Doug, you're skipping over the first part that you had me do, which is you're going to make a markdown file.
Oh yeah.
That's called voice.md.
Yep.
And you're going to feed all your old writing into Claude. And you're going to say, help me update my voice file to help me sound more human when I ask you to write things for me.
I'll include that in the thing. It's called it's called voice DNA, and I'll include a prompt in the replay that like will begin to be able to do this. Yes, you're right.
So that work that you do here will let Claude look at that every day when you ask it to write something. So when it writes back, it knows to use too many exclamation points if you're me, and write with too many spaces, and sound more conversational and less academic. Like it's going to know because it's going to have looked at all my stuff and it'll have built a thing, and it updates. Doug has mine set up to update every week, so it gets smarter about who I am and whatever. So that's how you make it sound a little less, and it still will be. Right now, it's still a little bit robotic, and it's for me, I still want to read it all, change it around a little bit before I send it.
I guess my point was that the same, ideals around garbage in, garbage out. If you have lots of context to give it because you've done writing and lots of thinking and lots of talking about your thing, you will get a voice DNA that gets closer to accurate for you. And that will still, I would still suggest having a human in the loop. If you just say, write me a great newsletter about why camps make friendship better, then you are going to get what would sound like it came from anybody else. Like it just needs to have context. So this is where writing is a great forcing function on getting your ideas out and making it sound like you. And it's the reason that even in an AI world, it pays to continue to write. I mean, it's probably a different discussion for a different day, but writing in and of itself will allow these models to be better. But you still got to write. You got to still go write and kind of like have your own spin on different things. Yeah, Claude can go into Drive. Look, I'm not a Gemini expert. I really actually don't even use Gemini. So I don't even want to comment on this. If someone else does, they can. I chose one lane with Claude because I wanted to make sure I could use one place really, really well and didn't want to code switch between literally and figuratively code switch between two different places. I'm also like a Notion maximalist. I do everything in Notion. Jack does a lot of things in Drive. But because Jack hates Notion, and this is one thing that we're gonna end up. This will be a delta that will end up clearing. I hope at some point is because Notion is just kind of the goat when it comes to being able to organize all of this stuff. So whatever, Jack. But that's a different. Jack and I fight about this one a lot. If you can't tell, this is like one of those like sort of like there's another conversation happening in the background while I'm saying this in the foreground. And I also just know that like I do think that the Claude interface is pretty user friendly. I'll say that. Like I don't get anything for promoting Claude here. Like there's no there's no promo code for Claude. So there's nothing coming back to me by saying, hey, go use it. I'm just saying this is what we ended up. This is where we ended up landing. Let me go through a couple other questions if no one else had them. Can it help build staff training resources without replacing my creative strengths? For sure. Yeah. It will just keep giving a context about the creativity that you have and ask it to level up your ideas, or like, use some other, have it combined with other staff training data that you find from everywhere else that you really like and kind of just meld them together. Claude's great at like kind of combining stuff together. Oh, this is someone's note taker. So I love this. Someone's note taker made a note to make sure that the meeting's ending. Can AI handle complex scheduling without making camp feel generic? I don't think Claude would make the scheduling feel generic. I think that actually what happens in actually the camp itself would actually feel real or generic. So I don't think the actual making of the schedule would be a problem with making anything generic. I'm going to read through a couple other questions here. The scheduling question. Oh yeah, there was a couple about if my staff push back on this. I think this one's like worth addressing real fast because every staff is going to have levels of comfort here. Everyone can just choose. Everyone knows their own staff better than me. I don't know anyone's staff. I don't run a staff. I don't even have a staff. I work by myself, and I don't have anyone. I don't have anyone that reports to me, and I don't report to anyone. So I want to be really, really clear about that one. But I have seen with teams and small teams like camps, when there are people that are either nervous or openly against using it, I would not start with an edict, hey, we're all going to start using this. I would start with the prompts that we talked about before, which is just giving it some context and having it ask some questions about one specific thing you're trying to do. If you can have people sort of see that it can just help them a little bit with something that they already do, we've found that that's like the best way to start using it a little bit more, because it just makes everyone wants their life to be easier pretty much. Like everyone that I know at least just wants their life to be X percentage easier. And this is just one of those ways. So if you can get small wins around an idea or around just something that was hard that is now a little easier, those are the best ways to do it. So to not start with, hey, we're all just going to try to ship something high level day one. Just spend 30 minutes. We did this with K&E. We had a little talk about it, and then we said, everyone go off for 30 minutes and just have a little conversation with Claude or ChatGPT about whatever it is you're doing, and just come back and say what happened with it. And that was pretty meaningful, I think. Like even that 30 minutes was a pretty meaningful 30 minutes of, there's no expectation about having, no one needs to go get another camper to camp in the next 30 minutes, and you don't have to solve all staff training. Just go tell it about yourself, and let's just see if it figures out anything by the end. And that was a really meaningful conversation for some people that were just had never one of the people had never even logged in before, and like I think right, like, and it was like all of a sudden it was like, oh man, it just really helped with something. Those are the kinds of wins you can get. So if you have a team that's resistant, I would definitely start there. Lots of people want to do that. Everyone's got a problem with the schedule. I can see scheduling seems to be the big one.
Marshall, you hear that? Marshall, you hear that? Just get that ship tomorrow. And maybe you get a bunch of clients. I'm just saying.
Doug, how
um,
can Claude and Cowork help me get new campers?
yeah, this is one that Jack and I go about a lot with this. So this is okay. This is a hard one. Okay, so it's simultaneously hard and it's very easy, I would say, right? This is what Jack and I, how many hours last week did we spend on this exact question?
I had an
Jack, you
absolute
think like,
meltdown last week. I had an absolute meltdown last week knowing this was coming. This webinar is coming, and I was like, Doug, I can't passionately speak about the power of AI because right now all I can think about is how to get one more stinking kid to camp, and AI is not helping me get one more kid to camp. And Doug talked me off a ledge, and he was like, "Well, it actually you haven't thought about these things over here and how it's helping you spend some time doing this, whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, shut up, Doug. It hasn't gotten me one kid to camp." And then he asked me like, Doug, this is why I like working with Doug. And again, I'm not trying to blow smoke up Doug's ass because he's my friend and I don't like him feeling too good about himself. But he was basically like, he asked me a bunch of questions, and one of them was like, well, what do you wish was true right now? Don't think about AI. And I said something like blah 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 blah, and then I realized that what I needed to do was make sure everyone I know personally thinks of me as the guy about camp for in my personal network, all the people I know. Like, and so that's what led to, if you any of you are connected to me on any social media, you're just like seeing my stupid face everywhere you go, as I tried to like talk about the power of camp. And then Doug helped me build that thing that like sends me a, hey, these are 3 ideas to run a camp. Because for me, at K&E, we're very personal on the like sales side of who comes to camp. We're a small camp. We're one-on-one. We're bringing people in that way. It is less like sort of like big scale marketing. So I've done that. The other thing, Mario, that I've done to try to help me understand how to get kids to camp is I had my co-work build the list of all of the private schools that my kids go to and figure out what's the messaging that those schools are making. I had to go find as many camps like me and go look at the messaging that's out there so that I can, and then ran it against what our messaging is to make sure we're differentiating, that we sound different. Because if you go on any of our websites, and I'm not all the way there yet, but in conversation, I'm better at it now. Um, Look at every website, and like, I don't know, every website says like we make friends and grow confidence and like good. It's like every one of the websites looks the same. And so helping narrow in on some differentiation on the messaging. And I had a ambassador call with some moms that care about camp last week, and said we talked about a bunch of stuff, and then I had Claude make a list of from that call, what can we really do? What's the messaging that we can really make? Where did it come from? How does it relate to the stuff that's been written? The short answer, Mario, I don't know how to help him get me one more kid to camp, but I know how it's helping me be smarter as I think about getting kids to camp.
yeah,
And
can I, I
that's
want to
not
add
a
one. Yeah, let me add one thing to that too, because it's like I can't. I wish I could just be like, "Hey, Claude," I wish I could prompt the kid to camp, right? Because I would just run, an infinity loop on prompting more kids to come to camp, and that would be done. But that like can't happen. But one thing that I think is helpful to think about, and Jack and I, we talked a lot about this. There's like two ways to think about AI specifically as a resource, and it's like time saved and time created. And there's time saved, and so I feel what I like to use it for is what can I save time doing that I just do all the time that I just don't want to do myself anymore, and I for sure don't want to pay someone to do. Like I just have things that are happening all the time. Like I need to process client calls, I need to send invoices, I need to do things like this that are just happening all the time. I don't want to spend any more time clicking buttons to do that. So I need to save my time to do that. Now, at that point, I can use that saved time to do a couple different things. I can just go and play basketball with my kid, or which I'm going to do, but I also can just create time for the things that I didn't have time to do before, like finding out new places to reach out to, like creating more social media, which is like ends up being kind of important to me. Which is so there's like time saved and there's time created. I do think there's a world where the you creating time for yourself to accomplish things that you were not able to accomplish before because you're saving time on the things that you just are so rote that you really, if it's rote to you, then it can be rote to Claude and you can just kind of be done with it as a process. I do think about it that way. I also think that like often Claude can be a way to break down a barrier of something that like seemed very hard and now doesn't need to be as hard. Like Jack, making videos is one of these things. It like seems hard to think about. Like I got to turn this camera on, and I got to point it toward me, and I got to have this whole script, and I got to do this whole thing, and I got to ship it off to someone to get edited. And it's like it's a thing. There's like lots of things that happen. It's not just making a video of yourself. What can a process layer strip out of that so it can get us close to just turn the camera on, record it, and then be done with it? Like we can set up processes that clear away most of that thing. All of us have things like this in our lives. I have plenty of things like this that I don't want to do, but I also recognize as being important. And I want to make that list, and I want to clear away as many things as I can so that I can help get the other things easier, and then go into the other things that might be hard. Like how do I? We haven't even done this. Like, well, how do I run a really good Google ad campaign? How do I have a good remarket campaign? How do I do these things that we actually haven't done? I could pay someone to do this now, but could we get close to the finish line by just having a back and forth and getting a lot of it cleared away? Like I think we probably could. So
Andy's advice at Andy Schlensky's advice at Tri-State when he was talking about this, I love Andy, appreciate you. Again, I don't like to give Andy too much credit. Is he said look through your cash flow. What are you spending money on every month? And actually, you could probably upload this to Claude and say, what of these would be easy to have Claude help me with? Because we're spending money to run Google ads. Could you not pay somebody externally to do that and bring that in-house? You're paying somebody to help you plan your staff training. Can Claude help? Whatever it is, what are you paying for externally, and what can you, and look at that as the beginning of what maybe it could help you do, because you have an itemized list about what those things are.
Claude said my thing was coffee, by the way, because when I gave it all my financials, like, what's going on with coffee, dude? And I was like, you are right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that heads up.
Mario doesn't drink coffee. Mario doesn't drink coffee, so you can't save money on drinking coffee. But
I'm just saying that was me.
Make up some board games for you, Mario. You don't have to spend money on those fancy board games anymore.
All right.
This meeting's over. We really appreciate you being here. We'll stick around for a little bit longer and sort of answer some questions if you need it. Really, I love talking to Doug about this stuff. He makes my life easier. You don't need Doug. Find someone who is thinking about this stuff more than you are, so you can focus on the part that you're great at. You're going to be great at talking to people, probably. You're going to be great at taking care of camp. That's what you're going to be number one in the world at. And what I like is I talk to Doug. He helps me bring other stuff in-house so that I don't have to spend as much money on it, because AI can do a bunch of it for me as I'm like getting better. And this is the beginning, not in any way the end of what AI is going to do. The world is going to be very different, I believe, in a couple of years. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but I want to have a smart friend who's thinking about it for me. So find one and let them be that for you, whoever that might could be. And for me, it's Doug. So thank you all so much. We'll send a recap of all the stuff and stick around and chat with anybody. But it's this is like the informal, I wish we were drinking beers and hanging out version of this webinar.